Awesome. Hold on a second. Alright, go for it.
We've all been urged to say.
Oh, not yet.
I'm not ready.
Sorry.
We've all been urged to say something, to speak something dynamic into existence, to speak raw emotion from deep within our chest and off the tip of our tongues. Ananda Osa. Many of you are probably asking, well, what is poetry slam and spoken word poetry? According to poetry slam is a competitive art of performance poetry. It puts a dual emphasis on writing and performance, encouraging poets to focus on what they are saying and how they are saying it. Anis Mochagani is an influential spoken word poet with the ability to embed inspiration and motivation for goodness in the hearts of humans. First, we will discuss the history and life of Anis Mochagani. Next, we will present Mochagani's famous poem, Shake the Dust, and explain its significance. Then we will examine the communication tactics in Mochagani's performance of Shake the Dust. Lastly, we will justify our choice to speak about Anis Mochagani. First, who is Anis Mochagani? Anis Mochagani is a spoken word superhero. And who is Mochagani now? According to Ananda Osa at commonline.com, his poems bleed pure energy into anyone who cares enough to open up and listen. Anis' poems manifest a distinct articulation and raw emotions we've all wished we had at one time or another. He is a Portland-based poet who is a genius who speaks with passion and honesty. What is Mochagani's history? He was born June 13, 1977, in New Orleans, Louisiana. He later moved to Georgia and graduated from the Savannah College of Art and Design with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Comic Art and a Master of Fine Arts in Performing Arts. Over the course of his career, Mochagani has been a member of several poetry slam teams, including New Orleans, NYC, Urbana, and Seattle. He is also a member of 2007's Solomon Sparrow's Electric Whale Revival and 2008 Junkyard Ghost Revival, both of which are featured poets Buddy Wakefield and Derek Brown as actively touring members. Nowadays, Mochagani is able to earn an income as a touring poet, declares Goodreads.com. Why is Mochagani important enough to speak about for 15 minutes? Anis is the 2007 World Cup Poetry Slam champion and the 2005 and 2006 National Poetry Slam individual champion, which is a back-to-back honor shared only by fellow artist Buddy Wakefield. He is also the 2006 Seattle Grand Slam champion. Anis has been featured on HBO's Deaf Poetry Jam and placed second in Poetry Slam National Public Radio's The Beat. And in the documentary Slam Planet, War of the Words, you can also find his word in Spoken Word Revolution and in the literary journal Rattle. Mochagani was also named in the book Words in Your Face, a guided tour through 20 years of the New York City Poetry Slam as one of the poets who saw success after leaving New York City, notoriously competitive poetry slam community. Also states Goodreads.com. Now that you know a little about Mochagani's life, let us watch one of his most famous works.
And this one right here, this is for the fat girls. This one is for the little brothers. This is for the schoolyard wimps, for the childhood bullies that tormented them, for the former prom queen and for the milk crate ball players, for the nighttime cereal eaters, and for the retired elderly Walmart store front door greeters. Shake the dust. This is for the benches and the people sitting upon them. For the bus drivers driving a million broken hymns. For the men who have to hold down 3 jobs simply to hold up their children. For the nighttime schoolers and for the midnight bike riders trying to fly. Shake the dust. This is for the 2-year-olds who cannot be understood because they speak half English and half God. Shake the dust. For the boys with the beautiful, beautiful sisters, shake the dust. For the girls with those brothers who are going crazy. Those gym class wallflowers. And the 12-year-olds afraid of taking public showers. For the kid who's always late to class because he forgets the combination to his lockers. For the girl who loves somebody else, shake the dust. This is for the hard men who want love, but know that it won't come. For for the ones the amendments do not stand up for the ones who are forgotten, for the ones who are told to speak only when you are spoken to, and then never spoken to. Speak every time you stand, so you do not forget yourself. Do not let one moment go by that doesn't remind you that your heart beats 100,000 times a day, that there are gallons of blood to make every one of your oceans. I'm not settled for letting these waves settle, and for the dust to collect in your veins. This is for the celibate pedophile who keeps on struggling, for the poetry teachers, and for the people who go on vacations alone, for the sweat that drips off of Mick Jagger's singing lips, and for the shaking skirt on Tina Turner's shaking hips, for the heavens and for the hells through which Tina has lived. This is for the tired and for the dreamers. For those families that will never be like the Cleavers, with perfectly made dinners and sons like Wally and the Beaver. This is for the bigots, for the sexists, for the killers, and for the big house jail sentenced cats becoming redeemers. And for the springtime that somehow seems to always show up after every single winter. This is for you. This is for you. Make sure that by the time the fisherman returns, you are gone. Because just like the days, I burn at both ends. And every time I write, every time I open my eyes, I'm cutting out parts of myself just to give them to you. So shake the dust and take me with you when you do, for none of this has ever been for me. All that pushes and pulls and pushes and pulls, it pushes for you. So grab this world by its clothespins, shake it out again, and jump on top and take it for a spin. And when you hop off, shake it again. For this is yours. Make my words worth something. Make this more than just another poem that I write, more than just another night that sits heavy above us all. Walk into it. Breathe it in. Let it crash through the halls of your arms like the millions of years of millions of poets, coursing like blood, pumping and pushing, making you live, shaking the dust. When the world knocks on your front door, clutch the knob tightly and open on up. And run forward into its widespread greeting arms. Your hands in front of you, fingertips trembling, though they may be.
As you have just seen, Shake the Dust by Anismo Gajani is an unforgettable, mind-blowing, creative speech that evokes many emotions to the listener. It is significant because it is able to first motivate us to improve our lives. Second, it teaches us to believe in ourselves. And finally, it shows us the similarities each of us have with each other. This inspirational poem is written and spoken to push us to strive for more, to give us the wake-up call we need to get out of the rut our lives are in. Mojani says, so grab this world by its clothespins and shake it again, and jump on top and take it for a spin. And when you hop off, shake it again, for this is yours. No matter where we are in life, we can always do better. And it is not too late to break free of our lives and begin living our dreams. Another life lesson in Mojani Shake the Dust is a lesson of confidence and believing in yourself. Throughout the poem, phrases like, speak every time you stand, so you do not forget yourself, and do not settle for letting these waves settle and the dust collect to it, collect in your veins. Perhaps one of the greatest things about Shake the Dust is how it relates to absolutely each and every one of us. Mojani does this in a very simple way, by literally referring to each and every one of us. This is for the fat girls, for the little brothers, for the schoolyard wimps, for the former prom queens, for the bus drivers, for the nighttime schoolers, for the 2-year-olds, for the 12-year-olds afraid of taking showers, for the hard men, for the celibate pedophile, for the tired dreamers, for the bigots, sexists, and killers. This creative way of relating his powerful message to all of us is truly genius, because it shows us that all of us have similarities, no matter how different our physical appearance, past experiences, and lives may be. We all need to shake the dust off our lives. Now that we understand what Shake the Dust means, let us examine the communication tactics Mojani uses throughout the presentation of his poem.
Anismo Gajani uses many different communication tactics in order to get his message across clearly to his audience. One major tactic he uses throughout his speech is identification. This is when the speaker relates or identifies with their audience. He identifies with all different types of people, from the fat girls, the hard men, to the bigots, sexists, and killers. He relates his message not only to himself, but also to everyone in the audience or anyone listening to the speech. By doing this, he shows that we are all equal and similar in some ways, no matter where we are from or the current lives we live. Now, Anis Mojgani uses many crude or vulgar terms, but throughout these lines, he keeps in mind his respect for his audience. When I say respect, I mean he shows deferential regard and addresses audience members as unique human beings. His first line is, "This is for the fat girls." This may seem disrespectful to some, but ultimately he depersonalizes the message by not making the main focus of the speech on the so-called fat girls. He describes multiple types of people, such as the retired elderly Walmart store greeters or the ones who are forgotten. By doing this, he maintains a level of respect towards his audience and makes the audience pay more attention to him. A third tactic Mojgani uses are signposts. These are used in order to transition from one point to the next. The major signpost used in Shake the Dust is this. Throughout the speech, he uses this at least 17 times in order to reiterate the point that he is not only speaking for himself, but he is being a voice for his audience. Throughout Mojgani's presentation of Shake the Dust, he uses many different volumes and pauses. He changes the volume of his voice in order to add emphasis and meaning to certain lines and words. He also mainly uses pauses to not only signify transitions, but to draw attention to a key thought and also to allow the listeners to ponder and contemplate what is being said. Now that you have experienced and come to understand Anis Mojgani's artistic expression, we will explain our inspiration to present him as our speaker.
We were motivated to discuss Anis Mojgani with you because his poetic speeches are so different than everything we're accustomed to in this class. They have an artistic spin to them. There's a refreshing sound. There's raw thought that's coming into our ears. And we also are exposed to honesty. Honesty in his expression and in his words, and his messages are just so powerful. So, first, how is Mojgani's refreshing sound draws you in and holds and hardly allows boredom to bestow you. When Mojgani's poetry falls upon your ears, his freshly expressed imagery and ideology captivates your mind. His voice sends out sound waves you have never heard compiled in such a manner. This style is just so new to you. Secondly, Mojgani's raw perspectives keeps your attention. Your mind begs to hear him continue to the next expression, the next sentence, the next idiom, the next new idea. The essence of uncut and real thought characterizes Mojgani's perspective, because he holds nothing back. All that exists is subject to be mentioned in his poetry. The good, the bad, the innocent, the guilty, the gruesome, the empathetic, the spiritually enriching, the downtrodden, the uplifting, whatever it is probably there somewhere. Next is the honesty in his expression. In an interview with Common Line's Ananda Osel, Mojgani distinguishes his style from other spoken word poets. He says, "I try not to perform. I simply share a poem that I've written and open up myself to be allowed the same effect that it hopefully will have on an audience member." So he's saying these words as he would read them, or as he's written them. He's not putting on some elaborate show. He's just saying them, honestly to someone, and hoping that it'll have that same emotional effect that it had on him when he created it. The emotion that he conveys is just so authentic, because the shaking voice, the waving arms, the speeding pace, the intense inhales, the exasperated exhales, all of these antics are just completely honest. It's what he actually feels. The last thing, Mojgani's messages are powerful. I feel like his power in his speaking ability is just sort of collateral damage from all of the combination of raw and refreshing and honesty in his speeches. However, also in the previous mentioned interview, Mojgani told Osel that his strong grasp on human psychology gives him the ability as an artist to connect to his audience. I believe the connection he refers to is his main attribute. The ability to relate on the level of sensory detail, on emotional detail, and spiritual detail is sure to leave any artist unforgettable. And so in conclusion, in this entire 15-minute spiel, we introduced you to Anis Mojgani, the spoken word superhero. We presented Shake the Dust, an unforgettable, mind-blowing, creative speech that evokes many emotions to the listener. The speech's significance dwells in its ability to first motivate us to improve our lives, second, teach us to believe in ourselves, and third, and finally, show the similarities that each of us has with one another. We then examine the many different communication tactics Mojgani uses in order to get his message across to people. Finally, we explained how Mojgani's unique poetic speeches motivated us to share them with you. We hope you enjoyed his art like we did.